I don't know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority, honestly.
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?
Peace, everyone. Welcome to another exciting edition of HAPI Talks. My name is Taki Grant. I'm your host for tonight. We have an exciting panel here talking about the topic of the African origin of civilization. We have none other than our renowned scholar, or scholars, I should say, Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, Mama J, as we affectionately call her. We have Baba Mfundishi, brother Asar Imhotep. But before we get started into tonight's topic, just want to give everyone, some time to come in the building. There's several people. See, brother DM's kind of been here waiting. Take this opportunity to like, share this video, and also leave a comment. I said we have several comments already. Definitely want to just, acknowledge that. And also talk about what we are doing in Detroit with the One Africa Power and Unity Conference. We originally were scheduled to do this conference in Egypt on February 25th and 26th. Due to some negative press and some other slander and other things that occurred, we had to change the conference dates and move it to the States. And we also redubbed or renamed the conference the One Africa, instead of the One Africa Returning to the Source Conference, now it's the One Africa Power and Unity Conference, and really speaks to what we're doing here at HAPI. Promoting unity, which is essential, economic unity, political unity, unity, and just in terms of loving each other, relationship unity, all these different things is at our core principles of HAPI. Also, in that core principle, HAPI is teaching. And if those who have seen HAPI, and if you have not, you can go to hapifilm.com and get a copy of the film. The film itself speaks to the connectivity and confluence of African people, because it's very important to understand that dynamic, because that is really what drives the discussions. When we start to speak to the Blackness or the Africanness of ancient Kemet, we look no other within the continent to find roots of Kemet, and in terms of just other people sharing ideas and customs and cultures. So when we think of One Africa, we also think of just the confluence of African people. So tonight we have with us three of our best scholars to discuss this, particularly from the aspect of Dr. Rosalind Jeffries, who's an art historian and can speak to the legacy of art and historical value, and also the spiritual value, and how these art pieces are connected from one culture to another. It's very phenomenal. Also, brother Asar Imhotep, the linguistic, speaking of just the language comparison, which some of this he also delivered in HAPI, and Mfundishi, also with the language piece and the art piece as well. So we really have an exciting show. Just to go back a second before we get started, the conference dates are April 30th and May 1st, Saturday and Sunday. Please get your tickets. If you are in the Midwest area, typically people in Detroit, but anywhere in the Midwest, you want to get your tickets, you want to be live. You want to come sit in the building with us. One thing Felicia and I realized the importance of this camaraderie that we have, kind of getting off the internet and seeing people in person and at these live events, and it's a very special thing. And we want to continue that in Detroit. So if you're in the area, you plan on coming to Detroit, space is limited, and we're pretty much almost 75% at capacity. So get your tickets immediately, hapifilm.com. And if you can't make it to Detroit, you can also get the ticket to stream it. And that's also the same link, hapifilm.com. Get your tickets, please, there. And also, while you're on the website, please sign up for the newsletter and be a part of this extremely beautiful HAPI movement that has been initiated. HAPI, we see it as the resurrection of consciousness, and we're going to keep this moving forward. So without any further ado, we're going to bring in our panel. Peace, family. How's everyone doing tonight? Mama J, Hotep, how are you?
Hotep, fine. Fine as a joke, fine. Feel good like I knew I would.
Okay, that's good to hear. Bob Mfundishi, long time. Been looking for you, sir.
Yeah, I'm Hotep. Peace and
I
harmony.
think this is the first,
You,
I think this is the first time.
assistant came out and courted me yesterday, the other day. Got me face to face. Mfundishi, I got you. Yes, sir. But
But we got to track you down, you know?
I'm doing excellent. I'm writing. I got a couple of 2 books. I'm writing with both hands, 2 different books at the same time. So I'm flowing with the information, brother.
Okay. All right. So you know everything that's been going on. That's good to hear. Brother Asar Hotep, how are you, sir?
Peace and blessings. I am well. Happy to be here. No pun intended. And look forward to having this great discussion. Much love and blessings to everyone on the panel, as well as everyone who is listening live and catching us this evening.
Yeah, you know, it's interesting you say happy, no pun intended. When we first put this thing together, we didn't realize we were actually going into the in terms of the great calendar, the HAPI. You know, we didn't know we were entering that. And it was interesting. I sound like I had to get some feedback. Everybody have feedback on my mic?
Yeah, you got feedback right now.
Okay. All right. So I'm not going to be doing talking anyway. So Mama J, we'll start with you. What is your experience as an art historian?
I am, yes, an art historian, a product of the Department of Art at Yale University, and also my own experiences in travel and living in Africa. So that as an art historian, people have asked me over the years to write articles about their exhibitions, and I worked with Dr. Ivan Van Sertima and wrote for his journals, his professional journals. So art historians work in museums. I work basically at the Metropolitan Museum of Art full-time, with several titles all at once. One was for traveling exhibitions. I was able to go into the stacks and create an exhibition. And then I was able to, on staff, do tours to be there for the major exhibition that had come. That was the Treasures of Ancient Nigeria. I also was sent out in the community. So there was a prison program for the education department, community education. So I used to go to the prisons, and I also used to go to a group of safe houses that was associated with the museum for pregnant young girls who were not married, pulled out of high school. And my job was to bring them to the museum and to inspire them with the holdings through their pregnancy, and so to learn about pregnancy around the world. And so many things I have done like that. And so I'll kind of like leave it there, since we are going to be talking about the exhibition at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. But certainly I did live in the Ivory Coast for a while. My first trip to Africa was in 1960. And so we have been at this a long time. When we lived in San Jose State University, I was able to, way back in 1969, in those years, to travel to Africa, crate up certain objects of antiquities, and have them sent to California for the city museum, city of San Jose, and things like that.
Thank you so much, Mama J. So we see this exhibit at the Metropolitan Museum of Art as something that sets the pace for future educational processes. And one of the things that was interesting with us with the One Africa Return to the Source conference is we got a lot of backlash with something that these European institutions are speaking to. When we look at just the notion of East and West Africa being connected, and that's exactly what the exhibit speaks to. So, Mfundishi, can you give us some insight into your experiences walking through the Met and dealing with some of the exhibits?
Okay. My background, first of all, is I have masters in anthropology, archaeology, and history. So I was a historian, and I call myself an anthropologist, studying the various cultures of Africa. My family is from East Africa, Tanzania, so I speak Kiswahili, Kijiana, a couple of languages that are spoken in just that region of Eastern Africa. So I met Dr. at the school called Nieti Educational Institute, and I was the historian, and I taught Kiswahili, and I met Dr. Ben. He was our keynote speaker, and this was like 1975. He was just coming out with the book, The Black Man and His Family. And so I got turned on to Dr. Ben. Long story short, I traveled to Africa about 9 times with Dr. Ben. I came in at one time. I sat at the feet of Dr. John Henry Clark. He put me out of his house many a night, telling me, son, you ain't got to go home. You got to leave here and leave my books. I would have 5 or 6 books open at one time. You know, he was better than live. So I happened at Dr. Jacob Crothers, sat at his feet, you know, did the Kemetic Institute. I learned Medu Netra from Sister Riketi Aman, who's also one of the founding members of the Kemetic Institute. So in the 1980s, I got engulfed in the Medu Netra. And Diop told us that if you're not learning the Medu Netra and understanding the history of Kemet, then you're not serious about Africa. And so I got real pinpointed and became a specialist dealing with the HAPI Valley and Africa in general, and showing how Medu Netra is entrenched in many African languages, all the way from Wolof, Dinka, all of these Swahili. There's even a Swahili Medu Netra club. So I've just been perpetuating and teaching Medu Netra since about the late 1980s. I took Sister Riketi's class, I think, in 1984, 85, and by about 1989, after 4 or 5 years, I studied with her all the way to the advanced student, and then I started teaching. So I've been teaching Medu Netra since the late 1980s. I think I produced over 5,000 students in Medu Netra. In fact, Brother Taki, you were one of in Medu Netra at the African Theater. Mama Jeffries was one of my Medu Netra students, one of my top students. So I've just been proud to stay on this track of the Kemetic spiritual legacy. And I'm so happy that when I walked in the museum and saw that exhibit, I think that's the first time I've seen it, any exhibition in a European setting where they admitted that Africa is the key to civilization and connected Africa with West Africa and Central Africa and South Africa. That's the first time I've ever seen it in a museum, because I call a museum a trophy case of white male domination. So they're not there to teach you. They're here to say, this is what you used to look like. Now you look like us. These are the clothes you used to wear. Now you got our clothes on. This is the language you used to speak. Now you speak our language. This is the type of institutions you used to have. Now you graduate from our universities and you perpetuate our culture. So when I saw something like this where they were admitting, okay, that ancient Kemet is Africa, and that it's linked to West Africa, South Africa, East Africa, and it's the same people that are responsible for civilization, that just put a smile on my face.
So let me ask you a question. Why do you think the One Africa Return to the Source conference got so much pushback when you have an institution as established as the Metropolitan Museum of Art basically featuring the same type of information?
When everybody's not at the same place at the same time. So we already know that. I think one of the reasons why you got so many pushback is that, remember, Egypt is the United Arab Republic. So let me say that again. It's the United Arab Republic, Misra, okay? And so the Arabs, through their own nationalism, is trying to say that these ancient monuments and temples is them. Here you got groups of Black people coming all around the world, especially from America and other parts of Africa, talking about, no, these monuments have nothing to do with Arabs. These monuments are the indigenous African people who traveled from East, West, North, South Africa. And that Egypt was just the mouthpiece of the African continent. So they don't want that type of publicity. It's like, I was in Egypt 2 years ago, just before the pandemic, and I had a crown with an ankh on it. And they were not going to let me in to see the pyramids. I'm like, wait a minute, that's not even in the building. It's outside. What do you mean I can't go in there? You can't go in there with the ankh on your head. And I had the ankh in my hand. I said, this ankh comes from here. And the Arab guy looked at me. He says, yes, but we are Muslims and we own this now. So I asked to speak to 3 different people. They were not going to let me in. And finally, somebody on my team said, oh, I'm putting this on Facebook. We're putting this on the internet. And when we pull the cameras out, then they said, okay, you can go in. Because they didn't want any publicity, like that, because that would have been bad for tourism.
Right. So, one of the interesting things that we found out dealing with this is that by and large, the people who were responsible for the hashtag Stop the Afrocentric Conference, and that's essentially what we had was a hashtag campaign that was initiated. A lot of these people were not Egyptian nationals. This Afrocentrism debunked group were people from all over the world, and surprisingly enough, some of them were even black. There's a huge contingent of black people that just don't see things, I guess you say, in a sense, the way we do. So it's really interesting to kind of see that. But it's really so I always go back to this situation and looking at what's in the Metropolitan Museum of Art and looking at the information that the conference was featuring, the connectivity and confluence of African people. And by the way, the conference in Detroit is the same thing. We're still going to have those types of discussions, as well as the aspect of unity and how the coming together and people and these different people just uniting is so important. So, I just want to just make that clear that our enemies are so much more than, I guess, these Arab nationals or whatever. There was people and they were hiding. There were so many troll accounts that were associated with it. And we'll ask Asar and Imhotep about that in a second, that were connected to a lot of the backlash we were receiving. A lot of people were hiding their hands. So, we have people out here just who are not in line with the African origin of civilization. So, Brother Asar, we spoke a minute ago about the trolls and the people who are responsible for some of this stuff. So just, this is kind of outside of the conversation for tonight, but just if you can, just kind of talk about your background as a computer scientist and how these troll accounts are initiated.
Indeed. Well, first and foremost, mic check 1, 2, and 2. Am I echoing? Do you hear?
No, you're good, brother. It seems like whatever problem we had should be over right now. So, go ahead, speak.
No problem. Yes. I am a computer scientist by trade, and part of what I do deals with cybersecurity and the like. And one of the things that you have to be concerned about is hacking. And when people think about hacking, they only think about someone penetrating a computer system or one storage system or the like. But hacking can be done socially by penetrating social media and trying to shape the narrative of something, or try to redirect the course of history to get a particular type of outcome. So, my personal name for these individuals, I call them the Arabized Russian bots. And if you know anything about the recent elections, that there was a lot of misinformation, that was posted in groups, that was coming allegedly from Russia, and they would create groups and they would go to popular, news sources and post types of information to try to reshape the narrative and move the elections in their way, in their favor or whatnot. And so this is something that, is always a concern for governments, is the ease of access and the lack of education from the general public to be able to discern what is real and what is not. And, you know, besides the general hacking of voting machines and the like. And so that same strategy was done when it came to this particular conference. And you would have a whole bunch of individuals who would create these fake accounts because they, of course, they're not accountable. They don't want to be accountable for their words and charges. And so in scholarship, when you make a claim, you know, you're presenting yourself, your reputation, and the reputation of the scholars who and institutions who put their stamp of approval on you in terms of degrees, certificates, or whatever kind of system that you have. You're putting all of that on the front, and you know you have to be willing to defend your position on something. Well, when you are a troll, you don't have to do that. You can just make a fake Facebook account, a Twitter account, you know, put fake pictures, you know, on there and just start, you know, trolling and typing misinformation and stirring up people who don't know enough about history, about, you know, who can't read meta nature, who don't know the speakers or their arguments. And so, you know, so that on top of just the inherent anti-Africanness that is in the region and its diaspora naturally. And so, you know, by attacking this notion that ancient Egypt, ancient Kemet, ancient Tamari is an African civilization that links it to people, as mentioned by Brother Mfundishi earlier, the Wolof people, the Yoruba people, the Congo people, the people in Sudan, and the people in Ethiopia. And because the religion of Islam itself is anti-African, and just, you know, even to a greater extent, Egyptology is anti-African. They do what they can to try to separate themselves. So, like, some of the arguments that I was hearing was that, for example, you know, the Egyptians were neither black nor white. They were Egyptians, and they had nothing to do with the Africans, which makes no sense since Egypt is on the continent of Africa. By definition, that would have made the native Egyptians African. But, you know, they have such cognitive dissonance that they aren't able to piece that simple bit of logic together and to make a strong argument. And so underlying the trolling methods is really just anti-Africanness, anti-blackness. And this is just one of the modern strategies that they're trying to use to hush and to suppress African voices and our ability to tell our own special cultural truths and history.
I heard some real triggering words there: hush, silence, stopping our ability to tell our own history. Family, if there was ever a time that it was important to get behind something, this is one. You got to get your tickets now. This conference is going to be historical, and it speaks to the fight that we're in. You got to go get your tickets now. Mama Jeffries, I would like to get into some of the dialogue and discussion that we had regarding some of your experiences as an art historian, showing the comparative artwork between East and West Africa, if we can.
Okay, so let me see. I want to share screen. Do I go? I guess I go down here. Let's see. Okay, let's see. I don't know exactly. Stop sharing. I want to share. Let me call See how
So,
I do
Mama,
this? Yes.
so Mama J, we see it.
Okay,
see your
can you
screen.
see it now?
Yes.
Can everybody see? Oh, good.
Yes.
Oh, everybody can see the screen. So let's. Some of these are very quick. Okay. Oh my goodness. It didn't kind of like work. What's happening? I don't know why the first slide didn't come up.
It'll probably come up. We'll just give it a minute. Is Charles there with you?
Okay, let me call Charles. Charles?
All right.
She probably just shared the application instead of doing a full screen share. If she does a full screen share and she goes full screen, then we'll be able to see
the slides.
The slide.
Okay. All right. We'll we'll give a
Don't do play. Because we had trouble. All right. So let's see now. Okay, here we are. Everybody sees this?
Yes.
Okay, good. So this is just one clip to show that Leonard and I, here's Dr. Leonard Jeffries, and here's myself, and here are the great officials of Elmina and Cape Coast here. And amongst these people, some of these are no longer living. Dubak is one example of it here. Here's James Small's oldest daughter. Some of these, Leah, some of these people are not even living anymore. But this is just to say, over the years, hundreds of people, African American, here's Claudia Hurst, an artist and no longer alive, but over the years, year after year, we've been taking people. Here's Taki Grant right here. Here's Mfundishi and myself. People that when Mfundishi used to have classes in meta nature at my house. We've had films where Taki took us down. I have pictures of Taki doing this and this, we saw in the HAPI film extravaganza. So here's when I was looking very younger, and sitting amongst the elders with their crowns throughout Africa, installed 2 different places in Ghana, and also installed by the Queen Mothers of Ife. Here, check onto Diop. His name, this is a book, this was done by Reggie Mabry, this particular clip, and showing you check onto Diop's book and the fact that check onto Diop was a scholar amongst many scholars who also went in talking about the origin of Africa, so that the wonderful Metropolitan Museum of Art is on target in what they are doing by putting a big sign out talking about, we're going to look at that real quickly, about the origin of Africa. But before him, we had Leo Hansberry, we had W.B. Du Bois, and many others. So to show you the grandeur, people coming up steps, waiting in lines in order to get into this exhibition. Because it's such a wonderful. Now, this particular clip that they're using for advertisement for the exhibition is one that we're familiar with way back with ASCAC and Dr. Asa Hilliard. He brought many different kinds of comparative images to ASCAC, and we use those as part of our lectures, not recently, but in time, so that we've been after this a lifetime. Here's the Dogon couple at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. When I was working there every day, I passed these sculptures and was able to look and to study them. What is interesting is that that same sculpture that they show you as a couple, I want to interject to just show you a little bit more of the art history around it. This was the cover of the book at the Brooklyn Museum, had a big exhibition. The Metropolitan had 2 different exhibitions on the Dogon people, but the primal couple that you're looking at, they are sitting on the world, what's called the globe There's a book called The Pale Fox, Marcel Griol, and in it they talk about the egg of life. And so they're sitting on an egg, that's the globe. This is the top platform of it, and this the bottom platform round with the poto in the middle, the axis mundial here. And so small figures around the sides are reaching up in the ka position with their hands raised. Where do we see the ka position but ancient Egypt? This is a tourist copy of the original Temple of Dendera, which is, Louis XIV here paid 15,000 francs for it to be at the Louvre, and so it's no longer in Kemet, but there are copies all around it everywhere. But the figures raised up, holding up the Astrodome, holding up the world, so that concept that we see in ancient Egypt at early dates, very early dates, we see throughout West Africa. Here's another sample where we find the Dogon figure with a beard, a masculine beard on a feminine form. The feminine breast. Where do we see this again? We see it in ancient Kemet, the image of Hapi, the Nile itself. It's shown with masculine beard and with feminine breast, male and female in one object at the primal essence of language. This is a chart by Harold Wright, who was part of the Mfundishi classes that we studied all together, not recently, but way back. And so he brought out the concepts too, as we all knew and had studied from Dr. Benin, Dr. Clark, and Theophil Obenga and Diop, the noonet, masculine, feminine, hauket, which is the masculine, the feminine, ku, masculine, feminine. We're not talking about LGBT. We're talking about the cosmology, metaphysical concepts and ideas that came out of Kemet that moved throughout the world. So that what do we have? We have Kemet here. In France, we have La Table. What? The table is feminine. Le Livre, the book, is masculine. So everything in the universe came about going into these languages, talking about what? The wholeness of who we are as being. I am the one that becomes two, that becomes four, that becomes eight. So these high ideas, metaphysical ideas, we will be looking at in Detroit. Here's a sample of Leonard and I, very young, again, with the son of Cheikh Anta Diop. Then they'll be able to tell you his relationship to Diop and the things that were done, the various kinds of books that were put out. You can't see my face now, but I do have right here a book that was written by Malefi Asante, where we know that the Diopian concepts came to America when he came to America. So that Charles French had conferences in Atlanta University. Malefi Asante at Temple University, Dr. Asante had conferences and even wrote a book in reference. So therefore, when we look at the title at the museum, this is put up in the museum. You see Diop's name is right here. Cheikh Anta Diop. Scholars today recognize Africa as the source of our common ancestry. But in 1974, Senegalese scholar, humanist, Cheikh Anta Diop, a geneticist, an anthropologist, an archaeologist, he shocked and challenged historians by asserting the influence. So therefore, the United Nations picked up his work and published it amongst about 10 other volumes along those same lines. So we're not talking about something that is not proven and not been fixed. And when we go into the Brooklyn Museum, I showed you the Brooklyn Museum with the Dogo figure there, but the Brooklyn Museum had a big plaque, still is there, up in front. The introduction has the name of Dr. John Henry Clark, who is our mentor. So West Africa and Central Africa is the derivative. And so that later too, we find when the Etruscan, the Greeks, and the Romans came, they took of this information and in some cases many cases tried to make it their own. So that therefore we have to study to separate the wheat from the shaft. Okay, so here is another clip. And so Takia was really asking me, well, yes, it's two figures. What is the real comparison here? The Kemetic figure with a heavy load on top of their head. And then here we have a bowl. And so the hands up. So this fits in with this idea of holding up bowls, holding up the universe, holding, and in Central Africa, the Luba people and various others functioned in that form. And so once again, here's the position of the ka, to hold up the bowl, to hold up the body, to hold up the astrodome, to hold up the belly. Now, for time's sake, we're going to just move ahead through because these are the actual printed forms from the museum, giving you some of the exact same information that I'm telling you, the movement from one end to another. And so here we have the famous pendant. And this pendant is from Nigeria. I pass this almost every day at the Rockefeller Wing when I was working there. And so you might ask, well, what is the real significance of this? The significance is that you had a period of classical 12th to 14th century Nigeria. You had a period of classical works. Yes, there was some primitive, there was some naive works, etc., but there was also the classical that was as beautiful as any classical anywhere else in the world, be it 500 years BC, the classical period of Greece with the discus thrower, with the three fates, classism, wherever you find it in the Renaissance period. This object looked like it's speaking. It's a pendant worn on the hip of the Oba of the Oni, you know, in reference to the mother as being powerful within what? The divine kingship system, and that the culture was such that you had the mudfish appear a symbol of divinity, because the mudfish can move from air to earth to muddy waters. And if you can move between three dimensions, the body represents the mud, the earth, the clay. We're made out of the clay of the earth, and yet we move with popping eyes that look Bantu-like, and then the antennas, the extrasensory perception. And so they like the mudfish form next to a Portuguese head to let you know, like us today, those of us who have not been outer space, but we wear outer space clothing with symbols and signs saying that we are a people who deal with the things of our day, age, and time. So I was part of the Queen Mothers, initiated by a Queen Mother from Ife. And so therefore, African Americans did take on this culture. The logo was used throughout the world as to represent Africa. So here's the head of the Oni, and this was a symbol for the longest for the IBWC, the International Black Women's Congress, Dr. Frances LaRose Rogers, and many other women there who were leaders in Black studies throughout the country. And so here's a sample of the head itself, done in clay. Some of them were done in metal, bronze, but I'm just letting you know that when the actual Oni of Ife left, when he left his headquarters, and let's see, one second. Okay, let's just move on. When he left his headquarters in 2021 and came to the, that's okay. I can just talk because I want to move on fast. There's a lot of what I want to look at.
So Mama J,
yes.
there's some questions I'd like to ask you in regards to some of the stuff that we were just talking about. But before we get into that, I wanted to bring in Mfundishi briefly to talk about a few things.
Yes.
Okay.
So we can
Brother
at this point, just knowing that classism did exist in ancient Kemet like this, but that wasn't the only place. It was other places in the continent. Okay, yes. Let's bring on Mfundishi.
So, Bob Mfundishi, Mama J spoke several times about the Ka. For those who are not familiar with the Ka and the spiritual significance of it, could you please speak to that, please?
Okay, the composition represents the spirit, and the spirit is connected to everything. In ancient Kemet, we talk about there's various domains. The spirit domain is energy. All energy exists. Anything in motion represents energy. So spirit is everywhere. So even when we use the word nature is that which is divine. We're talking about the spirit, which is in all things. See, like some people have the God complex, but they talking about something outside of them that created everything. When Kemet, we talk about the spiritual nature, which we are part of. So that's why we say we are divine beings having a divine spiritual beings having a divine human experience. So we are a raindrop. We're an air. We're the fish. We're the leaves. We're the tree. No one defines God like that. They just say God made them. And we understood nature was part of all of that. And so nature was a raindrop. Nature is the ocean. It's the water. It's us. It's our heartbeat. It's the beat in between the heart. Okay, so that's that composition. We're raising up. We're exalted. We're lifting up. You'll see Shu. Shu is holding up the sky in that same position of the Ka. And we talked about the several levels of the Ka, the spirit, the shadow. All of those are done in my book. I kind of outlined it in my book, Spiritual Warriors Are Healers. I go into great depth of explaining that. So they did show this several times in that exhibit. I saw that composition being done in Kemet, and then they show it in West Africa, Central Africa, showing this continuity. I was actually literally pretty shocked, Mama Jeffries. When I saw that, I said, oh my goodness, they're actually admitting that all this stuff, like even the headrest, they showed the headrest in Kemet, and then they showed the headrest. You have the headrest among the East Africa, the Watusi. You have the Maasai, and then they had the headdress in Benin, and showed the East in Ghana. They showed it, the headdress. So again, they're making this connection from Kemet to East, West, and Southern Africa. All of that was like really shown. I was like really shocked. Even the Black Madonna figure was there, showing Haru and Aset. And then they showed the Benin figure. And then they showed the Ghanaian figure, of the mother and child, which later, Judaism, Christianity will adopt. So It was just beautiful to see these various connections. I think they had about 25 different examples. Even the Ankh, they had the Akuba doll, from Ghana, which represent fertility, looking just like the Ankh, So again, life. And if you go to the Metropolitan where they have the Madu Nature, they say that this is here we go. Here's one of my slides right here. This particular one is in a position here. And this vest that is worn is like a warrior's vest. That's medicine. Each one of those little things that's tied in there is different medicine that the warriors would wear. And here's a warrior that you see on my book. In fact, I have that same picture on the book of my book, Kupagani Ngumi, which I wrote 1990. So I've been doing this for just a little while. I've done this since 1990, and I became a Kemetic Kupagani specialist in 1980. So we've been doing this for just a little while. Let me see, can I move to another slide here? Hold on. I don't know. Look like I can't move this. I don't know what's. Okay, my presentation. I can't do the slide presentation, but I can just talk about what I saw there. And the cover, that African origins of civilization. for the Metropolitan, Mama Jeffries, I'd like to ask you, who was the curator that put that together? That particular exhibit. Do you know who the curator was? You're muted. You're muted, Mama Jeffries. Yeah.
You mean the exhibition that's up now?
Yeah, it's up now.
I think there was a collection of people and deciding because they intend to magnify it and really put in a full exhibition 2024.
Oh, okay. So that was just like a teaser
effort. And on some of the things, Grunwald, of the people who donated money. So I think there's a reservoir of money that is being collected and that they have from people who want to see a larger exhibition. And so I think the departments coming together are kind of like getting together. So I don't think it's a full emphasis on one person. I may be wrong, but I think it's a collaboration of something in progress. And so as they are in progress, we really want them to be reminded of how long we have been at this subject matter. That even David, 1 second.
And while you get that together, I just want to make this statement.
Wait a minute.
I want you to understand every museum in the world.
Elisa Lagama. Okay, I know her in reference to the Congo exhibition. So I have the names right here in front of me. Michael Pulitzer, the curator in charge of the Michael Rockefeller Wing, and Diana Craig Patch, Lila Atchison Wallace, the curator in charge of Department of Egyptian Art. Those are the ones that, so as I mentioned, it was a collaboration of people from the various departments coming together. So they are indeed to be commended. And Lagama, she was the one that did a fantastic catalog on the Congo people. And I was able to bring groups to the museum to take them around to that exhibit. They had more Nkisi. See, you showed the Nkisi Congo, and they had full statues of them, 4 feet high, a whole corridor. So that was just wonderful.
Now, Taki, I want to make sure that people understand they need to go see the exhibit, because almost every museum in the world separates Egypt, ancient Kemet, from Africa, and Africa below the Sahara. Every museum in the world. In fact, not only do they separate it, they go to the extreme. When you go in the Metropolitan, as far left as you can go is the ancient Africa. And then as far right as you can go is ancient Egypt. At the Brooklyn Museum, they got Egypt up on the 3rd floor, Africa on the 1st floor, and Egypt up on the 3rd floor and the 5th floor. So you won't be able to put no connection together. And so for them to do something like this is really monumental. And somehow I think some people need to write the Metropolitan Museum and tell them, thank you. Okay, here, you can see the rest of my slides here. Here, this is a statue. This is Sahu. This is from the first golden age of ancient Kemet. And I heard one of the curators say one time, a white lady was in the group and said, oh, they look like Negroes. And the guy said, oh, no, they just had blunt instruments. I was like, oh, no, he did not say that, So it's clear, even white folks can see these are African people. Let me move to another slide. Somebody who just manipulate that, can you show them back up? Let me go to another specific one. Here you can see in the center here, this is, for example, this is Ptah. So right now we're getting ready to have the Oscar Awards. And here it is, Ptah. You can see where they got the whole concept of the Oscar. And Ptah is the creative architect of the universe, but he is a patron to all the craftsmen. So the actors, the best craftsman actor and actress is given this award. They call it an Oscar, but it's really Ptah. And then we see it behind it. We see the artist from Benin, from the Benin sculpture. Come back up. Let me just give another one. But again, they're showing that even everything we're seeing in the West comes from Africa. And we can show it not only in Kemet, but we can show it. Here is a staff. We have a Khan golden staff in the center. And then you see the ancient priest. He has a sim staff in his right hand. And the sim staff is showing his position. He's a shim priest. I mean, he's like the lecturer priest. He's the one that does the prayers and stuff like that. And then he's holding the staff in the other hand. So when he walks through the community, everybody knows who he is. And then they show the Akan staff with the golden stool on it. And it's in gold, showing this similarity of the staffs in Kemet, the staffs in West Africa, the Akan. I was mesmerized that they did this. Let me just move one or two more. Hold on. Okay. Oh, this was important. The mask over here. Right up above that one. Okay. No, Mama Jeffries did this one. Hold it. But here, this the one right above that. Yes. Right. Okay. I want people, our visitors, to know that when you see Inpu with the jackal head and you see the Inpu priest with the jackal head, that's a mask. Masks were used by African people from time memorial to represent zoomorphic energy, spiritual energy, energy you can't see. They would create a mask to talk about something you can't see. Or they would home into this animal zoomorphic energy that humans could possess or aspire to possess. So here we see the mask in East Africa, in West Africa, and then we see the mask in East Africa. So when you see Jhuty, that's a mask, y'all. When you see Sebek, that's a mask. When you see Haru, that's a mask. I don't know why Egyptologists, not Egyptologists, but other people got talking about these are aliens from another planet, and they try to throw some spookism in. When you see the Dogon mask, it's a mask. So we use masks because we wear masks. Every person goes through 5 or 6 different personalities every day. And that doesn't mean you're schizo. That's just you act a certain way with your children. You act another way at work. You act another way with your friends. So you're wearing different masks. We understood that. So we made masks that represent these powerful energies. And we tapped into zoomorphic energies because we understood that the animals are our teachers. So I love this concept of mask in Egypt, mask in West Africa, connected. Because we don't make that connection. We want to take them to aliens. We want to make it sound like something spooky, but it shows this continuity of African masks. Let me just show one more. Come back. Below that. Okay, hold it. Right here. The one just before, below that. No, right. Okay, you can do that. This is the Leopard Society. You can go, you'll see the same, you'll see it in Kemet. I'll see the same leopard when I was staying in Nigeria at the Igbo, at the palace of the Igbo and stuff like that. They have the same thing here, the Leopard Society. My family from Tanzania, we got the Leopard Society. I'm a high priest. I wear the leopard skin. Even in South America, they had the jaguar, which looked like the leopard. That's an African connection coming across the water. And so they're showing here, and then they have a lion here. The significance of the lion. You can go to China. When I was in China, they got the most sacred dance at New Year is the lion's dance. Ain't no lions there. Who introduced them to that? In front of their temples, there's 2 lions. Throughout Europe now, in palaces, they got lions. Here in New York, in front of the municipal buildings, lions. They're showing that from Kemet to Greece to Rome, and then they spread it all around the world. But you can go all around Africa, and you see the same symbols. So I even got 2 leopards like that here in my living room, and one more. Let me just show the bust right next to that, to the right. No, the other way. I talked about the headrest. This was the headrest that we talked about. Go in the other direction. Yeah, this way. One more. Yeah, right there. Now, Mama Jeffries talked about the Benin piece, so I can't outdo that. Mama Jeffries was the bomb. Okay. But I want to go to the left of that. And we see Queen T's mouth. Go back to that same one. Right. This is Queen T. This is the mother of Akhenaten. Akhenaten. This is yellow jasper. So I want to show people know that I do crystals and gemstones. I want to understand the concept of crystals and gemstones was blown to its greatest height in ancient Kemet. When you looked at their Asar, they would have the lapis lazuli, the cornelian, clear quartz, amethyst. They would show that, but this is yellow jasper. So they understand, and this represents energy, it represents personification, it represents pride, and it represents wealth. And so not only did they choose certain stones, they understood the significance of those stones, and we're doing that today. So the whole concept of crystallology and all of that is that ancient Kemetic concept. Today, with Europeans, it's new age because they're just getting into it. We were doing this before they learned how to speak. Okay, so I'm just showing you how ancient this is. You know, we understood the power between gems and crystals. And throughout Kemet, even that mask that Mama Jeffries talk about, that's made of ivory. And many times they would have the ivory in it. They understood that would be considered an organic gem material. You know, one more and I'll close out. Just this is all in part of that exhibit. Oh, up here, right here. This up above, one up. Yeah, right there. No, one over to the left. Yeah, right there. Hit that one. Good. This is Akhenaten, one of the daughters of Akhenaten. She has locks, and on the side it has West Africa with the little kente, the Nubian knots, you know, and the African hair, showing that African hair in Kemet, African hair naturally in West Africa, East Africa, the same hairstyle. So we see even Buddha has the Bantu knots, you know, on his head. And only African people wear Bantu knots. Okay, so I'm just trying to show you. They showed you in the museum the ancient Kemetu wearing locks and braids. Europeans don't wear locks and braids. Okay, not like this, you know. I mean, exclude Bo Derek and all of that. But we know that it's an African hairstyle. And even the statues in Mexico have their hair braided. That's how we knew that these statues were African, not just big lip Mexicans. But, you know, that they were African because they had the plaiting and the braided that was indigenous to African culture. So here they're showing the indigenous African hairstyles in East Africa, West Africa, and ancient Kemet, the same people. And again, this was made out of alabaster. So the material that they used was also important. And so again, we're going back to the gemstones and the crystal. That's the mineral domain. So the composition was part of the spirit domain. The second domain is the mineral domain. The third domain is the animal. That's the zoomorphic figures. And then the fourth domain is humans. And you can't understand humans until you understand the animal, the plant, the mineral, and the spirit. So that's kind of like an introduction to, you know, what I'm talking about. And the Medu Neter clearly shows all of this. From the staff to, was this the Chua people? Hold on, let me, come, yeah, right over one left, to the left, right here. Yeah, hit that one. To the right, they have Bess. So this is a good one for me to close out for right now. Bess, the first Haru was Bess Haru. Bess is the Chua people, the Khoi, Sand people, the shortest people ethnically in the world. So in Africa, you got the shortest people and you got the tallest people ethnically. Like this, the Dinka in Sudan, where average height might be 6'9". The average height of an American is 5'9". So that just lets you know we got the short. This is all on one continent. And they're showing you Bess is responsible for dance, music, arrangement. And then they show you, so that's in this statue of Bess is coming from Kemet, but over here they're showing the dance, the contortionists, and all of that in West Africa, showing this connection of dance, music, unlimited motion, East Africa, West Africa, all in one, showing that this is truly the foundation and the base of civilization. So again, I was shocked that the Metropolitan Museum would lead something like that. No other museum I've been to, and I see them in Europe, Australia, Africa, China, all over, I've never seen them put together like that.
But incorrect. This conference we're going to have in Detroit is going to speak directly to this. Brother Asar Imhotep, just for those who don't know you. Oh, before we get into that, just real quick, family, please like, share, and comment on this video. You can see there's a powerful discussion. It is farther than my imagination, what I envisioned before we did it. I didn't know it was going to be this powerful. Please get this information out. Please also, for those people on YouTube, you know, if you want to be generous and get something in the super chat, that's great. Also, you know, the Cash App is always available for people also to help out with this cause and this movement. So before we move on to you, I just want to ask Mfundishi one last question. Brother Mfundishi, I saw that you're going to have a tour to the museum. You want to speak to that? I don't know if it happened or if it's going to happen, but you want to tell people about that?
In 2 weeks, we have a well, next week we're doing a virtual presentation of the spring equinox. But that's virtual. And then on that Saturday, we meet at Central Park at the Tekken. But before we go into the Tekken at 10 o'clock when the museum open, we're going to take people to that exhibit that you just saw just now. So I'm going to lead people, take them to that exhibit live. Because,
right. So
you know,
how can they get information or tickets?
Right. They can go, it'll be posted on my website, mfundishijhutyms.net, or they can just contact me directly on my Facebook. Okay, but we'll have tickets. They can post it. They can pay, or they can pay when they get there, or pay us. You know, so they still have to contribute to the museum, but then they pay us separate for our tour, because we break down just like Mama Jeffries would break it. We break it down. I go through all the writings they do. I dispel the myths. And the most important things, I read the glyphs that's right there so they can see what's going on. And then at some other point, I think on the 20-something, it's on my website, www.mfundishijhutyms.net. We have a virtual tour. They pay $33 right online, and they get their ticket, and then they can go with me to the whole museum. So we do the whole Egyptian wing plus that. We used to do one where we had Mama Jeffries would take people to the African part in West Africa, and then I would do the East Africa. Those were the classic days. Do you remember those, Mama Jeffries?
Hey, Fee, put the promotion back up for the tour, please. One more moment, people can see it. While she's putting that up, just want to real quick. So there's this is the virtual museum
on the 21st. Yeah, on the 21st of this month. Then they can go to the Metropolitan. Yeah, they'll be going to the Metropolitan Museum.
21st of March or April?
April.
Okay.
Right. And then I'm doing it. It's not up yet. It's not posted yet. But I'm also doing it when we do wet rim put. Not wet rim put. When we do, we have a group of initiates being graduation for the spring equinox. So I have a couple of students that's in Africa right now. They'll be back at the end of the month. So the first weekend in April, we're doing a live presentation at the Tekken, and that's when we're also going to the Metropolitan Museum to the exhibit. So we have 2 times. One, the first week in April, and then the 21st in April. So if the one a week from now was too early, they can go online and book tickets for the 21st.
Awesome. Brother Asar Imhotep, for those who may not know who you are, you want to please introduce yourself and tell people a little bit about your background?
Alrighty, no problem. Yes, as mentioned previously, I am a computer scientist. Originally out of Texas and of course West Philly, and also an Africologist, and study and contribute in the field of Africology. One of the many tools that I use in my comparative analysis of ancient African history is historical comparative linguistics. And so many people mainly know me from that, especially with the comparisons of ancient Egyptian language, culture, and philosophy with Central Africa, more specifically Congo and Cameroon. And so that in a nutshell.
Thank you. So, one of the things when we think about connectivity and let's talk about this African origin of civilization for a minute. and
Okay.
with the works Cheikh Anta Diop did, and we got to give honor, we got to pay homage and respect to Cheikh Anta Diop for being a trailblazer in this field. The museum obviously renamed the exhibit after his work, but we want to make sure that we pay the respect to the ancestor, the proper respect to the ancestor. One of the things that Cheikh Anta Diop brought up was the connection between the linguistic connection between Wolof and the Medu Neter. Can you elaborate on that or add any insight to that?
Yes, but I want to first put it in its proper context. So you got to remember that at the time that Cheikh Anta Diop, first emerged was in the 50s, the 1950s, and at this time there was large debate on whether modern Homo sapiens sapiens, if there was a single origin of humanity, or was it multiple origins of humanity? And there was a body of scholars who were arguing for this, multi origin, after the level of Homo erectus. So, after Homo erectus had spread across the world, the argument was then, human beings developed separately at the same time. And there was also a large number of gaps in terms of a single narrative of African history and culture. And so when Cheikh Anta Diop emerges at this time, part of what he was trying to do was to create this single narrative using a multi-disciplinary approach. And so he used archaeology, he used anthropology, he used philology, that means the study of text, and he also used historical comparative linguistics as well as an evaluation of oral traditions and the like, to study human origins and migrations, and trying to put together this singular narrative because of the gaps in history and the large debates that were going on at that time. So the reason why historical comparative linguistics is very important is because, for the most part, the world's human populations did not have writing. And so in order for you to kind of cluster people into groups and to trace migrations and interactions in history, you would need other forms of evidences to help map and to figure out the routes in which people took, the interactions in terms of trade, influence, or inspirations behind art, and the like. There's just a whole plethora of things that we're trying to figure out as, historians and archaeologists and paleontologists and the like. And so, since we did not have writing in the way that we think of writing today, we had various modes of communication that for us were writing. For example, the tying of ropes, or the sewing of quilts and the like, and or the statues itself. So every week we communicated in various different ways, but it's hard to decipher those things outside of a priesthood type entry. And so the best way to be able to trace the ideas of people and their connections and migrations is to examine the languages. And so the curiosity started with Diop comparing his native language, which is Wolof, which is found on the far extreme west coast of Africa in Senegal. And, one of his earliest teachers was a woman by the name of Lilius Homberger. And she was a linguist who wrote in French. And she was able in that early period to make linguistic connections between West African languages and ancient Egypt. Now, keep in mind at this time, at the time of Lilius Homburger in the 30s and 40s, etc., there was not any major groupings of African languages just yet. So they weren't bound by, later Greenberg's Niger Congo, Nilo-Saharan, Khoisan and Afro-Asiatic. So much of the thesis that comes from Diop actually comes from Lilius Homburger. He just modifies some things. And so, because Lilius Homburger was making the argument that, for example, Wolof, the Sierra languages, the Pular, some other Bantu languages, etc., that they derived from ancient Egyptian language. And so that caused a lot of stir or a lot of commotion and backlash in the linguistics field. But when Diop came a little later on, after studying under her, and then of course taking other courses in historical comparative linguistics, he took the essential thesis of Lilius Homburger that Wolof and Fulani, etc., was related to ancient Egyptian, but he abandoned the idea that these derived from ancient Egyptian, that they were they had a family relationship in terms of if you want to say daughter or or like brother sister, cousin relationships. And when he started examining his language in comparison to ancient Egyptian, he was able to find correspondences that you could not logically at the end of the day argue was a coincidence. And so because his analysis was so systematic in doing the comparisons, that you could only argue that Wolof and ancient Egyptian had the same pre-dialectical parent that gave birth or evolved, I should say, into those two particular languages. And so ancient Egypt and its language became a powerful anchor to compare the ancientness of concepts, of words in these modern African languages, especially when we're comparing them and trying to eliminate the Christian or Islamic influence. And so since ancient Kemet, ancient Egypt predates Islam and Christianity by thousands of years, that gives you several dates and anchors for which to calibrate, the modern words and human expressions and that of ancient Egypt. And that gives you a scientific basis to demonstrate that it's not a coincidence. Now we're getting into the archaeology and the expression. So those leopard skins that Mfundishi mentioned earlier, and that in the Leopard Society is well, we pronounce it as ba. There's a variation of the word ba that means leopard and leopard skin. In the Igbo and the Fon languages and the whatnot is ekpe or ekbe. And there's a systematic way that you can demonstrate that these are in fact the same words. And so this has a major implication in terms of history, because if they're using the same words and expressing and have the same society in ancient Kemet and over here in Nigeria, then there's a number of ways that we can argue this. Either it is a coincidence, which when we do the historical comparative linguistic method, we've eliminated that as a possibility. So either it is a result of either the ancient Egyptians migrating into Nigeria, or the Proto-Igbo and Yoruba, etc., migrated to Egypt and imparted, their culture and society there, or that this is a very old tradition and it just from the pre-dialectical parent, it survived in the daughter languages, and you see those two different types of expressions. And so those are the possibilities that we are able to entertain and go through further study to see which one of those hypotheses are best, or what is the evidence to support one of those three hypotheses, since we've already eliminated chance by doing the linguistic analysis. And so that's why it becomes very important, that study. And he's the one who really first emerges in terms of African scholars to bring that level of systematic analysis when it came to the languages, and to set the foundation for further studies, regarding this African cultural unity, which he was able to further establish with some other types of studies.
African cultural unity. I love that. It sounds like power and unity. So, you gave the example of Igbe and Ba. Do you have any other examples, or do you have any illustrations to kind of show the comparative languages and their connectivity?
If you allow me to share my screen, I'll just do a full share and you let me know. If you can see my screen.
Looking good. We got you.
All righty. And let me know if you see it in full screen or you just still see it in PowerPoint, because I'm in full screen, so I can't see you.
Full screen. You're good.
Okay. So I'll just skip here. The first thing that I want to say is to help people to understand exactly what is going to happen in just a moment. And so the first thing you have to understand is this principle that we call logical equivalence. And I liken historical comparative linguistics to mathematics. And I will go into more detail of what I mean by that at the conference. But one of the things I want to introduce now into this conversation is understanding when something is logically equivalent. So if you look over here on the left-hand side where I have this column, it says equation 1. And then I have equation 2 on the right-hand side. So what you see here is a formula that says, x to the power of n times x to the power of m equals x to the power of n plus m. What I'm showing you here is that regardless to how this formula looks and how this formula looks, they are equal. They are the same. They have the same semantic value. It's the same here when I say 12 equals 4 times 3, right? Or I can say 10 plus 2 equals 2 to the 4. And that's actually, my bad, that's supposed to be 2 to the 2, 2 raised to the 2. There's a mistake here. So because that's equals 16. But 2 raised to the power of 2 times 3. So 2 raised to the power of 2 is 4 times 3, and that's logically equivalent to 10 plus 2. And so in linguistics, we do a similar thing here. We're looking for, in language A formula that has a meaning that has a logical equivalent to a formula or a word, as we would say, in language 2, right? So there's a process that we do, it's called the historical comparative method. And on the screen is the 7 steps. I won't read them all, I'll just concentrate on the first 2. That is to assemble the cognates and establish the sound correspondences. And so we'll look at this set of correspondence. So I'm just going to focus on the Yoruba language right now. So it's we're going to stay in Nigeria amongst the Yoruba people. who live in Southwest Nigeria and in ancient Egypt. And because I come from the Bantu school of linguistics, and we call ancient Kemet Chikam, and there's actually a Chikam in Congo, and that's the linguistic cognate of the word Kemet. But let's look at the 3 columns that we see here. And so I have on the left-hand side, Chikam, or ancient Egyptian, and then I have in the center column the Yoruba language lexemes, and then I have the sound correspondences that I'm mapping, right? And so understand that, to our knowledge, the ancient Egyptians did not write out their vowels in the Old, Middle, and New Kingdom hieroglyphic text. Not until you get to Coptic do you get vowels. So we're just left with the consonantal skeleton of each word. So let's just do the first 3 rows. So on the left-hand side, we have the consonant sequence N as in Nancy, B as in boy in the ancient Egyptian language. It corresponds to the G and B sounds in sequence in the Yoruba language. And so we ignore for a moment the vowels in Yoruba because we don't have the vowels to compare to in Egyptian. So they are not highlighted. So the consonants that we are focused on in these 2 columns are highlighted for us in red, right? And you see in this 3rd column, the top rows are the first consonants, and the bottom row is the second consonant in sequence. So we call this the C1 position, the consonant in the first position. And then we have C2, which is the consonant in the second consonant position. And if there's a third like this would be C3, et cetera, et cetera. So we're only concerned with the roots here. So in Egyptian, you have this word neb, which we translate commonly as Lord, Master, Owner, or Husband. In the Yoruba, it is reflected as the word egbe or ogba, meaning rank. And there's another variation that means like an elder or the like. So when we're talking about like neb meaning husband, because husband, the man, is the head of the household, and usually the elder, like the council of elders, was run by men, and so when it came to leadership, it also doubled as a word for man or husband. But you see that in the Yoruba language, it's a word for just rank in general, because it has to deal with age and time. And speaking of time, the next one, we see this word, it has in the Egyptian language, the consonant sequence N and W. Now, a little bit of linguistics, based on my comparisons, the B sound that you see in this first column and the M as in Mary, in intervocalic, we say in intervocalic position. That means in between 2 vowels, it will weaken and become a W. So when we're doing comparisons internally with Egyptian, I'll always look for the equivalent of the same word in that has a W or an M sound, because we've been able to show in a number of lexemes that in certain dialectical variations, and or just because of the vocal environment, the vowel environment, you have this sound change. So you have this word here. We typically say new, or it should be more so like nawa, nawe. For time, in the Yoruba language, it is igba, time. And then you have in Chikam, nabed, goldsmith. And then you have in Yoruba, agbede, goldsmith, and just craftsmen in general. And so this, you can see that the correspondences are regular. We have eliminated chance, because it would be impossible to find this level of correspondences if these languages were not related. And of course, we would have to do more tests, which we can do. So now what you're going to see here is an internal test. So there's variation inside of Egyptian itself. And this informs us of dialects that are in the language, as well as possible borrowings from a closely related language that may not exist at this present time, that either, converge in pre-dynastic times or during the pharaonic period. So we have on the left-hand column, these are all Egyptian words. So there's no Yoruba here. But since we were dealing with the Neb, that Neb root also corresponds to the we erroneously say like ma and mat when we're pronouncing that root. But ma'at is 4 consonants. And the root is, you see variation is 3 consonants that you see here. And so by some other African comparisons, I can tell you for a fact that the M in ma'at is a prefix that was fossilized. The root is these 2 consonants right here. And this is what we call a nasalized uvular trill. It's a type of R sound. We don't have it in English, and it's kind of hard for me to make. It's kind of close to the French R. It's kind of a guttural R, but it's nasalized, and that's just, it's kind of hard for me to do. But like when you say la rouge or rouge in French, that type of R is closest that I can think of that people may be familiar with. And then we have this sound here that, is debated on what the sound actually is. But I can tell you from a historical standpoint that this was like an ng sound. And it became a D or a Z sound in some of the words in Egyptian, but that's a little bit too advanced for what we're trying to do. Just understand that these 3 are consonants. And so this root here, this nasalized uvular trill, actually nasalizes in this dialect here where it has the word, the root for neb. And so when you see fabric and linen, you have seneb, a woven product. In verb form, it is to weave, fabric, fabrication. And I don't know why I have this on here twice, but it's there twice. And so we have this word here, it's really more like marik or maradzi, marakit, meaning like a place. And then we have this variation here that stands for, and I have other variations of this word that confirms it is a place or location. I just chose field for this one. And then we have this form here, meaning water of the sky, water or salt water. And then again, remember what we said about B and intervocalic position. So we know that there's a vowel after this, and it becomes a word for water. And we have this, merit or metikit, a word for rope. And then in this form with the S prefix is the word for cord and twine. And so this lets us, when we're talking about the power of linguistics, it helps us to better analyze history here, because we're seeing these different dialects. And so this lets us know that, because when you read the Egyptological literature, they argue that there's no evidence for dialects until the Coptic period. And that's just not the case. And the problem is that we have in, Africanist linguists who don't know how to do the comparative method. And they never do these internal correspondences like we're able to do here, to be able to separate those dialects and or, to show just simply the correspondences, to hypothesize certain sound mutations even in pre-dynastic times. So when we're talking about, logical equivalence, there's a transitivity axiom that we follow, and that is the implicational law that if A informs B and B informs C, then A informs C. They're logically equivalent. Another way to say it is that if A equals B and B equals C, therefore A equals C. And that's what you're seeing in these particular examples. So I'll do 2 more slides of Yoruba correspondences, and then I'll stop there. So we can see in Egyptian, there's the root TN, as in the word Aten, as in the god Aten, right? We have the same TN correspondences in the Yoruba language. So, for example, you have itinu, and this I or ye sound. I use the German transliteration system, so some will just have an I use the J, but this is a prefix on the TN root. And we see the same here in Yoruba. This is, excuse me, let me go back to obscurities and riddles. And Yoruba is part of a phrase, Itan Lasan, myth. And Itan means story, narration, tale. We have Itin, light. We have Etana, lamp, flowers. It's a reflex here because it comes from a word meaning light, which we see in the next column, the next row here. Itin, to shine, to illuminate. And this root here, tan, to light a lamp, a torch, to shine, etc. And we see these related words here. And so going back to the flower, it's there. You have the vowel, the noun form meaning lamp, and flowers from this root here meaning to light a lamp, to torch. And then with the in extended, it becomes a noun and it's become lamp, and then flowers, especially white flowers that resemble light and whiteness. And then we just go and skip all the way to the bottom because we notice that we have TM, M as in Mary, to be complete, and then Yoruba, tan, finish, to finish, cease, exist, etc., etc. And when y'all are reviewing these, you can review the rest and see if my correspondences are logically sound. And so the last one I want to show is that, remember when we're going back here, that if A equals B and B equals C, therefore A equals C. And so when we see here, we see the same TN consonant sequence here, but it also corresponds to a different set of consonant sequences in ancient Egyptian. And so this lets us know that there was a sound split in ancient Egyptian, that in one form it kept the TN, but in another form it remained this dotted HN. So we have wahem, which means further, again, to repeat. In the Yoruba language is tun, again, once more. And it's in the, you may hear the name Atunde, and the one that's returned. And so we have here him, verb associated with curing an illness, and then Yoruba tan, to heal, to cure, and lastly him, to tread, and then the Yoruba form tona or tana, to follow the road, to trace the path, itona, a going in a path or going in a way or path. And so you can see that again, you can pause this on your own and you can check the logic of my correspondences. But you can see that these regular correspondences, it cannot be due to chance. It's impossible for all these words in these consonant sequences to be like this because just as an accident. And so this is why the linguistic component is very, very important, because it eliminates this argument that the Arabized Russian bots would make, saying that ancient Egypt has no relation with quote unquote Black Africa, sub-Saharan Africa. If that is the case, then what is your explanatory model for these types of correspondences that we're seeing? These indicate a deep ancestral relation. And so we can argue that the ancestors of the Yoruba people and the ancestors of the ancient Egyptians moved into the Nile Valley, But you can't do the same with Semitic. You can't do the same with Berber. And so we know that they did not come out of Asia. You can't do this with Indo-European languages. It's only those quote unquote sub-Saharan African languages that you get these regular series of correspondences. And so it tells us, it helps us to paint this picture that Diop, initiated and asked that question in terms of that singular narrative and linking all of Africa. So this is the scientific way in which we argue for one Africa, and that we can stand confidently in the world against any scholar, any Russian bot, Arabized Russian bot, anybody. We can stand confidently because we've done this work. And so
wow.
I'm a scientist, and so demonstration beats conversation each and every
Demonstration,
day.
Demonstration beat conversation every day. Hey, Fee, put up Sister Rashimela's comment again, show and prove, because that's what this HAPI Talks is about, showing and proving. And our panel's done an excellent job demonstrating the connectivity and confluence of African cultures, both artistically and linguistically so far. And this is just part one. We're going to do several parts of this discussion up until the conference, up until the One Africa Power and Unity Conference. Because in this showing of connectivity, we're also showing unity. And that's the symbol of HAPI, the unity. So we got to keep this going. Mama Jeffries, in our conversation earlier, we was talking about the Shep staff. And I wanted you to get into some of your further insights into the just the deep spiritual connections between the art correlations.
So should I do the share screen again real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, let's see now. Charles, let's do share screen again. Just do the share here.
Share screen.
Share screen. Share window.
Yeah. You can go to share.
While Mama J's getting set up, let's everyone please like and share the video. Okay, she's ready now. Go ahead, Mama J.
Yeah. So, right. So I just wanted to know, I was talking about this Ife head that was wonderful, but the actual Ife came because usually in the divine kingship system, those kinds of divine individuals do not lead the altar because they are praying for the kingdom and for the people. Ile Ife is called the center of the world. And so they do not leave. That's their job, to watch. But here in modern times, in 2021, we find that the Oba did leave his shrine to come to New York City. And so my husband and I were part of the entourage to invite him. And he was with Mayor Green in New Jersey, and then under Dr. Akil Kalfani. And then he was at City Hall in New York City, and then down to the African burial ground. So that was very significant to follow once again these old concepts and ideas as they permeate amongst us in a new reality. And so, yes, I was talking about the Shep staff here, which we really see when we see two staffs across the chest. This Shep staff, a small version, hand size, and we know it in the Bible as thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. And so I have very, very many comparisons between the old concepts of ancient Kemet before the Bible was written and the same concepts in the Old and the New Testament. We know that in Revelations chapter 3, verse 14, Jesus says, I am the Amen. And so that is the meaning, amen. You have the light, as was just mentioned, the radiation of the light that were the Ra rays, but we also have the essence of blackness and darkness and the unknown. We walk by faith and not by sight. And so that's the aspect of God in the Amen. So when we follow the concept and on the tours, we take people to the temple of Amen to get an understanding, a pre-biblical and biblical understanding. So with this rod, we understand that it's the Heka, meaning, we hate to use the word magic, but it has to do with a kind of power. And that same Shep leadership and within those realms, divine kingship systems, we know in the name Hatshepsut. So the way that brother Asar went through all of the various names within the languages of West Africa and Central Africa and Kemet, so too we can take certain artifacts and objects and follow them through. The Shep becomes, yes, the rod and thy staff, that leadeth me. And so too, we can easily move into the next version into Ghana, where you have a staff and the solar wing disc. We know the solar wing disc as coming from ancient Kemet, but here it is in Ghana. And so too in Ghana, you have all of these names with Amen. Amen in the name of villages, of towns, of personal names, constant aspect to the Amen and its meaning. And so therefore in Kemet we have what? Amen Ra, Amen Hotep, Amenehet. And so there is quite detailed information within the significant pictorials, signs and symbols, semiotics, as well as you can see in the intricacies of the language. So these are our ancestral things that reside still in us. We carry them through slavery and out of slavery into the Harlem Renaissance. I have done many lectures on the Harlem Renaissance. I think there was an attempt to do that at the Metropolitan too, an exhibit on the kind of some of the Africanisms within the Harlem Renaissance period, but we're talking about the here and now. And then here is the symbol, a circle and a bar means Shem, S-H-E-M, Shem, which means eternity. So you have the solar wing disc, you have the Shem here, the Erubijek symbol come in a different kind of a form, and you have the combining of two by a chain, which means Tawi, the two lands that come together to make one, the two serpents that come together and end up on the side right here. Two serpents you'll see on the solar wing disc. So to read the language, you can read the pictorials. To read the solar wing disc, we can read that in West Africa. And so here is the entree into the Hall of Africa that I so often went through and worked through. I know that once again here, this is the Bwa, or we people in Upper Volta, that Burkina Faso. And here is other semblances of those that have a circle in the middle, and the wings. Not all have the circle in the middle, but some do. Then here again, but what did the literature say? You look in the hall of some of these, and they say that this is butterfly. I mean, butterflies don't have horizontal wings. So what's going on here? Horizontal wings. And so the essence of a butterfly, what is it? It's the concept of resurrection of ancient Kemet. To have a butterfly that has a cocoon, inside is the lava. The cocoon is the essence of the swapti, of the mummy form. And so out of the mummy form, given its proper time and cycle, then comes out the beautiful butterfly. In this case, we have the birthing of the hornbill and the traditions and the culture of the hornbill at its dig its wife out of the hole in a tree, and then out come from the fertility the newborn to fly away. So I think at this particular point, I can kind of like say that let this be my last. There's so much more, but let's not overload in one day too much, Taki. So I'll leave this as my final slide visual for today and let you know that there's much more coming.
Thank you so much, Mama J. Please give Mama J a round of applause, everyone. We got to come up with something and happy. Somebody got B1, 9s, whatever. We got to come up with something that we can show our love and appreciation for our guests. This has been a powerful discussion. Like I said, this is only part 1 of the African origin of civilization. We'll be doing a part 2 and a part 3. And those we will make announcements for those shows to come. But I definitely want to say thank you. I just want to see if anyone has any closing remarks. We'll start with you, Baba and Mfundishi. You got anything you'd like to say?
Lecture would be and the conference again.
Start over. You were muted.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure people are understanding. One of the points I want to bring out in my lecture is symptomatic thinking versus symbolic thinking. And what this panel has showed you here today is a perfect example of symptomatic thinking. We go to the root. We can prove it. We show you its origins. We can back it up. We show you. For example, if we talk about a king, we can show you his statue. In some cases, we can show you his mummy. We can show you the writing. We can show you his works. We can take you there. It's not mythology. It's not some feel-good program. You know, so I want to make sure when I do my presentation, when you see that, when I talk about a particular idea and a concept, when we talk about, we can take you to its symptomatic origins and show you how it evolved all the way up to get to where we are now. And we can prove it emphatically. Versus symbolic thought means just take my word for it. Like in some of your biblical texts, just believe it. Like that's a history book. It's not a history book. They're just telling you believe that. It tells you almost that it's an allegory and we believe it. And so what we're doing, the scholars are coming to you with symptomatic thinking. We're showing you we can prove it beyond a shadow of a doubt. And that's why even with Brother Asar, Dua, for your presentation, we're showing that we can go against any scholars in the world because we're going symptomatically. When we say the Black Africa, that these kings are Black, we can show you their origins. We can show you their DNA sample. When they did Ursama Atras Tepenra Ramses III, they showed that his DNA is connected to Uganda. That the main people in Uganda have the same DNA pattern that Ursama in the 19th dynasty had. So we're showing you all of this. Everybody comes from the South. If we look at all the intermediate periods, were interruptions coming from Eurasia, and all the unification came from the interior up south, Africa. And so Pan-Africanism was actually created in ancient Kemet. We can show you this. They came together to kick Hyksos out. Not just the Nubians, all the neighboring people, because they understood that this was like a cancer. And they had to cut it out at the root and then build a wall. You know, unfortunately, the wall didn't hold up. Okay, but I'm trying to show you this operational unity. So Pan-Africanism is a Kemetic concept. Economics, as we know it in terms of trade and commerce, is a Kemetic, it's birthed in ancient Kemet and exposed to the rest of the world. The whole concept that these are African people, we can symptomatically prove it. We are the original architects and engineers of the world. Let me just give you one quick example of symptomatic thought. When I took people to the Metropolitan, there's a moat going around one of the temples. When you showing the Greek temple at Calypso, right? And people throw pennies in there and they make a wish. Where did they get that from? In ancient Kemet, when you threw copper coins in it, copper purified the water and killed all the germs and descendants that would be dangerous to people. So when they threw the copper in there, they were cleaning the water. Europeans symptomatically didn't know what they were doing, and they threw coins in there and was making a wish thinking that somebody was going to answer their prayer. That's symbolic thought versus symptomatic. Symptomatic, we understood the cause of why we did it, and we were in tune with nature. Somebody else sees what we're doing but don't understand it, make up some fairy tale stuff, and now here you are flipping quarters and pennies in there thinking you're going to get a new car, you know, because you done made that wish. Okay, all right, so symbolic thought versus symptomatic. Symptomatic, I can prove it, I can show it, I can lay it out. And so that's what we're doing at the conference. We're showing people this is not a feel-good thing. When we talk about Madu Nature, we can symptomatically show its origin. When I talk about the zoomorphic figures, I can take you in nature and show you the characteristics of that animal and why they used it in ancient Kemet or even in West Africa. And so I'm just looking forward to the conference. People, make sure you get your tickets and come on out. We're going to have a good time in Detroit. We're going to turn the place out. But the idea is that we're going to raise our level of consciousness. So that's what we're here to do. Come together in unity, raise our level of consciousness, because we're at war. This is psychological war. And let me say this. If you don't know you're at war, the chances of you winning is 0.
Show it, prove it, lay it out. And we are certainly at war. And I'm going to tell people that a lot of our enemies look just like us. And so to be aware of that. Asar, do you have any closing remarks?
Well, just 2 things. Firstly, I just want to say thank you for allowing me to be on this panel, this esteemed panel, and to share and have a dialogue with the community through HAPI. And lastly, that, you know, we got to understand how powerful we are, that the mere announcement of our coming startles a group of people because they understand the nature of the information and the power of the information that we're coming to bring and how that can unsettle the status quo as it is in the area. So, you know, you can tell the value of a thing by the types of relationships it creates. And, you know, by just us mentioning that ancient Egypt is in, or just Egypt itself is in Africa, and that it was a civilization created by Africans, they decided to wage war, not understanding that the information and the evidence is on our side. So that's why they had to cower between, you know, with fake accounts, because they couldn't face us head up. And so with that said, just understand that, you know, your scholars have been putting in work, and we're changing the course of history, and we're forcing you know, institutions to rethink their history and the way that they tell African history. And that's why the Met exhibit is such an important display. And it's not like we needed their acknowledgement, because we're going to do what we do anyway. But it just shows you that the work that we've been putting in since the, you know, the earliest 19th century has produced fruit. And we will continue this fight, and we continue this journey until this is common knowledge, and that African people will be able to look at the information, look at civilizations such as ancient Kemet, and be able to draw inspiration from it in order to create new opportunities and new possibilities that that go beyond what they did in the Nile Valley across Africa in general. So I do appreciate each and every, you know, one of you who are on the panel, each and every one of you who are listening. You know, please take this information and digest it and reflect, and we will see you in Detroit.
Thank you, brother Asar. Mama Jeffries, you got any closing words for us? give her a chance, get her mic unmuted.
Oh, okay, unmute. Okay. Oh, Lord, our God, we praise you and we thank you, for there's nothing like you. We are your servants, Sarah. We are your sons of God, your daughters of God. We thank you, Mihra. We are created in your image and likeness. What is your image and likeness? It's Nefer Neter. Nefer Neter, meaning good God, goodness and mercy that follows us all the days of our life. We say Nefer Neter because some cultures, like some of the Greeks, used to say that Cronus was not a good god. He ate up his children. Jealousy and rage was there. Zeus had to out-trick him. But the African element said Nefer, Neter. And so that's to permeate all of the cultures of the world. We praise you. We love you because that love that we experience, that is you, is so deep. We self-excavate into our being and we find that you love us more than we can love ourselves. So the criteria gets to be, who is on the Lord's side? Who will serve the king? Who will be in rage and in jealousy and in covetousness continually, destroying the world that we live in, regardless of race, color, and creed? And who will be on the side of Neferneter, the goodness and the mercy of Amen? Jesus said, I am the Amen. And so thus, what we think, we create. And thus, what we feel, we attract, no matter what color pigmentocracy. What we feel, we attract. What we imagine, we become. Amen. Amen. Amen.
Amen. Wow. Thank you, everyone. It's been a wonderful show. If you lovely people can hang out backstage, we'll close out the show, and I'll be with you momentarily. While they're going, Fee, please put back up the image of the logo for the conference. Peace, everyone. It's been an exciting night, far beyond my imagination. It was powerful, definitely a powerful discussion. Like I said, it's definitely part one of a series of discussions on this African origin of civilization. We're bringing in our top scholars to discuss this, also to discuss what happened to the One Africa Return to the Source Conference, and where we are now, the One Africa Power and Unity Conference in Detroit, April 30th and May 1st. I just want to kind of illustrate some of the things, because in this fight or war that we're in, it caused us to evolve and think about things more globally, think about who we are as Africans, not only to consider the information that was transmuted throughout the continent of Africa, but also that which came across the Atlantic through the Olmecs, the Incas, the Mayans. Obviously, within the United States, there's Africans that traversed the Atlantic well before Columbus, and there's Africans who brought their culture from the continent with them to the West. And we want to make sure that we illustrate these various different cultures to tell people that the power and unity is for Africans all throughout the world. And it's something we need to get behind and support. You can get your tickets at www.hapifilm.com. If you can't be there in person, you can stream the conference both days. There's also vending spaces available for those who want to be vendors. You can get your vending ticket to screen it. It's not to stream it, excuse me, or to be there in person. We prefer you be there in person, but there's limited space. We'd love to see everyone. This HAPI family is real. The HAPI movement is real. We love you guys. You've been a tremendous support to what is we're doing. We want to thank everyone for their donations, to the super chat and the Cash App as well. Also, we want to announce that we'll have Malana Karenga back, Dr. Malana Karenga back on the program next week on, excuse me, March 24th. That's going to be a powerful discussion. Just please look out for the advertising promotions for that. With that being said, family, again, we want to thank everyone. For those people who have not seen the film HAPI, please see it, because this is where it all began. And also, this is where a lot of the conversations that we're having, for me, were initiated through just various concepts of one Africa and the confluence of civilization, and going back to the Aquaba and the Ankh and the coastal incense burner and all these different language comparisons that we have and art comparisons that we have. We're not going to let anyone steal our history from us. History is clear. We can prove it scientifically. So with that, we want to say good night, peace, and we see you folks next week.
I don't know what we can talk about in this nation without talking about white superiority. Honestly,
Who defines the meaning of God also defines the relationship between economy and God.
African Americans spent $1.3 trillion last year, making us the 16th wealthiest nation in the world. Why have we not turned those riches into wealth to develop our community?